I had no recollection of being a human being. I couldn't tell you what a human was. I couldn't tell you what anything was. Of this life, this earth, nothing. And then I was flanked on both sides by these very tall beings. They felt to me, you could stay here, you could go back, or you could move on to what comes next. And they didn't elaborate. They just communicated my choices.
My guest today is Krista Gorman, who had a near-death experience that actually reset her body in a way that she feels like she has an entirely new set of DNA and is a different kind of person after this experience. So, Krista, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. So happy to be here. I love talking about this.
And I mentioned in your intro that you are very different after your experience. So I think actually where I'd really like to start is, will you share with us how you were different before this all happened?
Oh, sure. So leading up to my NDE, which was in 2000, and during labor with my daughter, I had been a PA student, a physician associate. I graduated my PA program 3 weeks before I had my daughter. And I was just highly motivated, very driven, science oriented. And so that was me going into labor.
Okay, well, I can't wait for you to share your near-death experience. So why don't you share it with us in whatever way
Mhm.
makes sense for you?
Okay. So again, I had graduated like 3 weeks before I was due with my daughter. And I had to be induced because she had a problem with her kidney that they found on like a 20-week ultrasound. And they suggested I go in a week early for induction so that she could get evaluated a little sooner, just to be sure that that kidney was functioning all right. So I went into the hospital, and I had several precognitive sort of events occur before this happened. It occurred the day that they suggested a C-section to me, which was approximately 2 months before I was due. And I had this sort of gut feeling like, no, you shouldn't do that. And then my sort of mind overrode it. And here I am, I'm a soon to be practicing medical professional, sitting in front of several medical professionals who are suggesting something medically that could be better for my baby. So, Krista, just go ahead and say yes. Like, okay. I thought the fear of could something have hurt, something harm my baby, should I say no? So I agreed to it. And then again, when the the night before I went in for the induction, I journaled, I wonder what will visit me or who will visit me in my dreams tonight. And I didn't have a specific like knowledge or understanding or anything of what that would be, but it was a feeling that I had that I just, jotted down. And then the next day, I went in for the induction. The nurse midwife for my OB came in. She said, "You're not progressing. Um, I think we're probably going to need to do a C-section." And every cell in my body said no. And and then again, once again, I'm like, okay, I'm willing to do whatever I need to do, of course, if that's what you're suggesting. Okay. And then my daughter's heart rate dropped very low. And it only has to happen one time for it to now become an emergency C-section. She kicked the amniotic fluid into my bloodstream, which very rapidly started to circulate. And the body sees it as foreign, wants to get rid of it. So it surrounds it with all these sort of cells that create little microclots. And it started to clot off my lungs. And I started having trouble breathing, and my heart it felt like it was palpitating. And as soon as I turned to my mother, um, she was sitting next to me, and I said, "I'm having trouble breathing." The nurses just jumped right in, and they took her and my now ex-husband out of the room. and stuff put oxygen on me, pulled me on my left side, and started to wheel me out of the room. And the whole time I was struggling to breathe. And just we got out the door into the hallway, the OR's right there. And I remember trying to pull air in as hard as I could. And I was making my family members could hear out in the waiting room, they could hear me making, they said that was this terrifying noise. And then this peace just came over me from above my head, and I just went out. And the next point of my awareness was of looking down and seeing what I didn't know at the time because I didn't have any understanding of anything I was looking at, but it was my body on a bed, and there were black little dots like particles racing up from the body to where my vision was, and they sort of surrounded me like this undulating cloud. And I was very neutral, very calm. I was curious, sort of this detached, like, oh, what's going on here? And I saw my doctor with a blue sort of drape hand something to a person at my right shoulder who took it and turned around really fast. And I started to feel curious about that. Like I wanted to know what that was. And I moved to the other side of the room, to the left side of my body. So it was over here. And there was a person who was doing this, and they were threading a catheter into my chest. But I started to feel more curious, and I started to have that tip of the tongue phenomena. Like, I know what this is. I just can't quite put my finger on it, but I know what this is. And then I felt this tug, and it was to my left pulling me. And I didn't want to go because I wanted to find out what was going on. And it pulled harder. And I just intuitively knew that I needed to go. So I just relaxed and said, okay. And I was pulled out of there through the wall into this bright white flash of like a space, and then through another little opening in the white space into the same dark particles that I was, only they were far denser, many more of them all together, and I was moving imperceptibly fast. And I looked to my left at one point, and there was this, I see the dense particles, and then I see like this fluidity, which is like a pearlescent sort of grayish white black, and then the dense particles again. And I turned my vision forward, and again I'm still in this neutral state, no fear, no concern at all, just there. And I came to a stop, and there was this download, like funnel of information. And the only way that I can describe it in human words is that it felt like all the questions I'd ever had in my life, why this, why that, was all answered. And it came down to one point, and it was love. And as soon as it sort of stopped at that point in front of me, I felt the love. I felt this all encompassing, eternal, unconditional, blissful, beautiful, pure love. And I was it. And it was everything. And I was everything. And it just went out infinitely. And I was like this little point, but I was infinitely expansive. And it was just this bliss, like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And all the while, I had no recollection of being a human being. I couldn't tell you what a human was. I couldn't tell you what anything was with being human, of this life, this earth, nothing. And off to my right in the distance, there was a little white light and dot. And I could feel it wanted me to come to it, and I wanted to go. So I started moving in that direction. It was like I was in this, and I describe it now because I have words over the, through processing this over the years, is that I was in this field of no resistance. So if I had a desire, then that's what happened. If the universe, God, creator, source, spirit, whatever you want to call it, had something for me that they intended, then that's what happened as well. So I went towards this light, and as I got closer, it got wider, bigger and wider, and it was a sort of a grayish white opening, and in the opening there were shadow beings, and there was sort of humanoid figures, and there was 4 or 5 adults, and then there was a little boy in the front, and he had this impression of a wide brim hat and overalls, and he was about the age of 7. And I called him a little Tom Sawyer, and he is the one that needed my help. So I went towards him, went into this space, and sort of went into like this, what I would call the center of the space. And I looked around for the little boy, and I didn't see him, but the adults, the older adult humanoid sort of shadow beings were fanned out around me, and they all needed my help. I could feel it. And I felt back, yes, I want to help you. So they started to dart at me and dart away, dart at me and dart away very rapidly. And they were coming from behind as well. And I could feel myself getting smaller, like diminishing. And I felt, well, no, I don't want this. And as soon as I felt that, I was pulled out of there and back into the dense particles, and then through another opening into this glorious, beautiful landscape where I immediately like merged with all of it. There was yellow flowers in the front and green rolling hills dotted with trees and a blue sky and a sun off in the left corner somewhere. There was a mossy rock covered like waterfall, and then a dense evergreen forest. And it was just completely perfect, blissful, beautiful. And I was one with all of it, the flowers, the water, the rocks, the trees, everything. And like I could have existed there forever. And then I was flanked on both sides by these very tall, sort of thin beings that were in beige, like drapey beige cloth. And they didn't have distinct faces. And we felt each other. We could, everything, all communication was through feeling. There was no telepathy because there was no thinking or words. It was just feeling. And they felt to me, you could stay here, you could go back, or you could move on to what comes next. And they didn't elaborate. They just communicated my choices. And I just for a moment, very, very brief, there's no time there, but very, very brief, I felt, do I want to stay here? Do I want to know what comes next? And do I want to go back? I didn't have any memory again of being human. I didn't know what going back meant. And I didn't really have a sense of what came afterwards, but I had the impression that it was like greater, something more. And I just felt back, I want to go back. So immediately I started moving backwards, and I could see the opening, and they sort of flanked the opening and communicated to me, if you go back, you need to share what you learned here. And I felt back, okay. And that was the next thing that I experienced was a pain in my chest. And what I believe was happening, because I actually saw it too documented, was the neurologist was doing a sternal rub because they had started to decrease the medication that they used to induce the coma. I was in a medical coma, to assess my neurologic status, because they thought that I would most likely, they sort of prepped my family. They said she'll probably require 24-hour care when she returns, if she survives this. They gave me a 50-50 chance of surviving. They had intubated me. I was in the ICU. And once they started to decrease the medication, I was starting to fight the ventilator, and I was stable enough where they could take out the tube. So they extubated me. And then again, we're reassessing. They were doing CTs and whatnot, and EEGs and all sorts of testing. So that was my experience, and I didn't recall it immediately, but I had all the sort of after effects immediately, which was I was like I had I had improved so rapidly, um, and I was completely like blissed out. And they had stopped all the medication. Then they put me in a room because I was so stable and I was trying to leave. I was unhooking myself and all sorts of things. So they really couldn't keep me there safely. So they put me in a private room and let me stay there for a few days and recover further. And each day I did recover a little bit more. And then the doctors came in and told me everything that happened. I'd also gone into DIC, which is when the mother bleeds uncontrollably. You can't clot your blood. And it happens after an amniotic fluid embolism, which is what I had. So they transfuse, 3 or 4 units of blood, and that alone will has a high mortality rate. And so I didn't die from the AFE and I didn't die from the DIC. And my doctors were like, we can't believe this happened. Like, you're a miracle. And my response was, well, whatever happened, I'm okay now. So I just want to go home. So and they just laughed. They just laughed, shook their heads like, oh my gosh, this girl. And my daughter had some complications, but she recovered pretty quickly. They transferred her to another hospital. She spent 6 days in the NICU, and then they brought her to me. And it was like I held her, and it was like I already knew her. And I kind of went through the motions of being like the new mom things. So where I was at was I was like, okay, so you're supposed to count their toes and their fingers. So I undid the blanket and I counted her toes and I looked around to make sure everybody saw me do it. Like, see guys, I'm all right. Meanwhile, I had short-term memory loss and I was we joke about misremembering things. Um, so yeah, and then my NDE came to me some weeks later after I woke up in the morning and I had the complete experience during sleep. And it was like realer than real. It was completely transformative. I mean, I was already transformed without an explanation for it, but that I realized like, oh my gosh, like this happened. This is like, who do I talk to? Who do I tell? And of course, I immediately screamed for my husband, and he came in and he listened, and I told him everything, and he said, "Well, that's amazing, but we're just glad you're okay." And I'm like, "But you don't understand. Like this is completely life-changing." From there, it was many, many years of integration and just trying to live life and all of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, Krista. There is so much there. And of course, I have so many questions. The first one I want to ask you is about being out of your body in the hospital room and seeing during your procedure of C-section
Mhm.
what was going on because you saw that you were getting a heart catheter. And did you
Yeah.
actually see the baby being taken out in the C-section?
What I saw was my doctor, my OB, who had just gotten back from his honeymoon, and then they call him to this emergency C-section. So he made it he made it a point to tell me, yeah, I just get back from my honeymoon and then you code. Thanks. You know?
Well, the
So
reason
I,
yeah, because the reason I'm asking is this is an opportunity for evidential
mhm,
evidence
mhm,
beyond any speculation of you dreamt it, you imagined it, you saw them do things that you should not have been able to see happening to you.
right.
And were you able to go back because you're already a medical professional? I'm sure you knew some of these people. Were
Mhm.
you able to go back and get confirmations about what you witnessed?
Yeah, I was actually. So I saw him with Maggie in the blue drape, but I couldn't really see her because she was kind of like I think the drape had like fallen over her or something. But he handed her over, and at the time that he was doing that, um, his partner, one of the other OBs, stepped in the doorway, and I saw him step in. He stood there for a minute, and then he stepped up to the bedside. And the first confirmation I had of like that's what happened was when I read the report of the C-section where it said that Dr. Easterling arrived to at the time of closing, which is exactly what happened. They delivered Maggie. Um, then I was bleeding uncontrollably, and they were trying to get the bleeding under control. And part of that was to quickly like cauterize and sew me up because the compression that can help stop bleeding. So Easterling was there, the doc I named him, to help. And some years later, after Maggie was in fifth grade or sixth grade, and I decided I was going to email my OB and just let him know that there weren't any hard feelings. Like I don't know, if you feel like something could have been done differently, but as far as I'm concerned, like everything's good. Maggie's thriving. And I sent her school picture, and he emailed me back in like 5 minutes. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so happy you emailed me." Like that day, I think his words were, "Two miracles happened that day. Um, your daughter survived and you survived." And he said, and the verbiage in my notes in my records, it's like I made a rapid and miraculous recovery. Um, and yeah, so yeah, there was I saw a wallpaper border up on the OR room, and there was a wallpaper border there. And the Swan Ganz catheter that the cardiologist that responded to the code blue was putting, I saw him putting it in my chest, and I still have the scar. Like it's it's interesting, it's like, and I still speak from almost a scientific point of view sometimes when I talk about this stuff because I went on to work as a scientist for 25 years, and I am a scientist. I'm more of a metaphysicist now, but yeah, it's it that I call it, I think they call it is it vertical? I can never pronounce the word vertical or veridical, like confirmation where
Yeah.
the stuff that you remember seeing that you saw
Hmm.
did actually happen. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that this is one of the best examples in near death experiences because, you can't, there are certain things that people can say, it was your imagination, it was your brain firing, it was whatever. But it's very hard to dismiss specific things that you should not have been able to see, that you witnessed, and that you could read and verify.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one of the aspects I love of your NDE, but you have others too that are very unique to yours. And one of them is the dense particles, the small particles. Yours seem to be almost like a guide. Will you elaborate a little bit more on these particles?
Yes. Well, I feel like they were my essence. And when I traveled to the other realms, my essence was there, traveled with me. I rejoined the greater, my greater self in the afterlife, which includes all of us. And it includes everything and everyone. And all of it is love.
And you said that what you were following, those particles that were you. So, can you explain what you've come to understand? Because you've been integrating this for 26 years.
Mm.
What do you understand about how much of our essence, each one of us watching, brings in to our human experience from our higher soul aspect?
Yeah, just a fraction of it.
100% agree.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What was pulling you? Were they the particles or was it an energy of something else?
It was an invisible energy. And it wasn't, there's no like emotional feeling attached to it at all. It was just a force. And it was like somebody taking your shirt and going like this. That's what it was. I can equate it to. but I had to agree to go. I had to,
Yeah,
you
tell
know,
me more about that because I
yeah,
think you're kind of alluding to free will.
absolutely, 100%.
What do you understand about free will?
That we have it here and there. So we always have free will. That was my experience. It may not be somebody else's, but that was mine. And um, so we get to choose. We get to choose all of it, everything. And that, we're creative beings at the core. We are here to create, and we create. We hear about it, talk about it, create our reality. And physics showed that yes, this is what you do.
So, one of the other parts I thought that was really interesting in your near death experience is where you became infinitely expansive and your knowledge mirrored that. And you had the answer to everything, but you realized that everything distilled down to one thing, which was love. And that makes sense because from all the people that I've spoken to, from my experiences, on the other side, we are in a state of being of love. But I love that you were also shown that every question was answered by love. So, can you give us a few examples of how you understand that that works?
Oh yeah, even the hard stuff is probably the best example. When I observe something in life, yeah, I read a headline or I read an article or hear something that has happened that is otherwise tragic. Um, in order to, it's almost like I kind of step outside of myself and become the observer and understand that that event occurred to a corporeal human in a body, but that individual soul, their essence is infinite, that we never die. We just change form and we go on to whatever else we choose to go on to. And that there is no suffering there. And that there, this event that took place can be sort of alchemized in that moment for me. So that's a really challenging place to put myself sometimes. Sometimes I have to get angry first. Sometimes I mourn, I do all of that, all of the human feelings around it. But ultimately that's where I end up. And and we come into these human bodies, we're in dualistic environment, dualistic reality that we create to learn, to grow, to integrate, to have experiences, to do all that. And, but when this body is done, then I, Krista, my essence does not die. I just step through a door into the next, the next phase of my existence.
So I love that you just said that. You stepped through the door into the next phase of your existence because of your experience that you had with those shadow beings.
Mhm.
So, did they step forward through a door into the next stage of their existence, which sounded more ghostly than expansive consciousness like you were?
Yeah, yeah. The shadow beings were there. So fundamentally, I co-created my NDE with the universe, with the collective, everyone, everything. These shadow beings were there to show me that I can choose me first. So that was a big, big lesson that I needed to learn, because in order for me to come back here and function in the body the way that I intended to, I had to be able to choose to preserve my energy as opposed to constantly giving in my life. Now, having said that, it wasn't like a switch just turned on and I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm going to choose me first. And you're going to have to wait. No, I was a new mother. I was a wife. I had a career to step into that was literally caring for other people every day, times 40 a day that I had to be fully present for. So I didn't learn it just like that. I spent time when I started to integrate my experience about 10 years after I had it. I started to get into meditation, was meditating regularly, and I created a sort of a blueprint, a roadmap, a set of principles that helped their states of being, and they are reflective of how I was in my NDE. They bring me to a place where I am able to allow the energy to flow through me. There's no resistance or minimal resistance. Allow the energies to flow through me when I'm interacting with people so that I am not taking on their energy and I am not projecting my energy other than loving them onto them. So in the emergency room, I worked for years in the emergency room, and that was a challenging place. And that was my training ground for that, to practice that. And I got to the point where people were like, "Oh, Krista's on shift. Yay." Like, "Oh, she's so, she's like always smiling or always happy or whatever." She brings they actually put it in my review. They said that I bring a sense of calm and like consistent calm to that environment. So that was the biggest compliment. The greatest validation I could get really was that other people were observing, and all they were observing was themselves. It's like, here's the potential, you know. Um, and I was thriving in that place when I left after almost 9 years.
Wow,
But
beautiful.
yeah.
The other part it really struck me about your experience with those shadow figures is it almost sounded like they were taking or trying to take your energy away from you. Is
Mhm.
that kind of how that felt? If you could describe it with human terms?
Yes, and if you can think about in your own life where you've encountered energy suckers, where you haven't been in a position where you are feeling spiritually rigorous, and they just drain the every ounce of life out of you. That's what they were there for. Those shadow beings. They had chosen to be there, and they were, Lee Whitting had brought up at one point we were talking about it, and he's like, it's kind of like you were in like a bardo, and there were other, spiritual beings there with you. And yes, that was the case. These spiritual beings were they were performing for me. Um, they had agreed to it too because they have free will. And and you know, the outcome, could it have been different? Could I have allowed them to just take all my energy? Absolutely. And then I would probably have stayed there, you
Whoa,
know?
that's incredible. But you didn't. Instead, you said, I don't want this.
Yeah.
So, is that something you feel like the people who are watching, who are in situations, can also use for themselves in the human experience?
Oh, 100%. And the thing is that especially as a female, you are not being selfish to put yourself first. It is the highest form of self-love. And sure, if your child is choking and you're thirsty, you're not going to say, "Hang on a minute, honey, I'm going to take a little drink." It's going to, it's not like that. But
I
you
love your sense of humor. This is
you
awesome.
uh, you have to you have to. It is in our best interest, especially as women, to purposefully put ourselves first
Yeah.
in the situations that call for it, that we know our intuition tells us I need to take care of me right now.
Hmm.
Then do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so then you have this thought, I don't want this, and all of a sudden you are in this heavenly realm that I think a lot of people, religions picture with beautiful rolling hills and trees and flowers of brilliant, magnificent colors. But you did just mention that you were co-creating your near-death experience. So do you think that this was a part that you co-created as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, because I felt like I needed to sort of have a little taste of what's to come, you know, when I do cross over again or walk through that doorway beyond the veil. Um, but also to have that intense feeling of connection to nature, where I always felt a connection. However, the depth of it was nowhere near what I felt in that realm. And here I am extremely connected to nature.
Me too.
Like for me, it does help to get quiet like that and to connect with myself, my higher self. I say higher, but it's my essence. It's so grounding and so healing.
That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah. So you were asked to go back and share what you learned.
Yeah.
So can you sum up for us? And I know you've been integrating this for 26 years. What do you feel that you really learned from this experience?
Love is everything, and everything is love, no matter what you're talking about.
And I think we have to go further then because there
Mhm.
are a lot of people who are going to be watching that will say yes, but because I see this in the comments.
Mhm.
Yes, but somebody I love is terminally ill. Yes, but such and such person was killed. Yes, but
Mhm.
XYZ happened to me. And it's easy for us to say it's love when it's the positive things, but I think the struggle in the human experience is trying to understand the love from the things that we would label as negative. And of course, we both know that it's not looked at that way from the other side. But can
Right.
you help people with that a little bit more?
Yeah, there's so much suffering. Um, my, I would never want anyone to not feel their feelings because they feel like they should feel something else. So I, as I said before, that is what I attempt to guide my focus to is love in every situation. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. I don't do it 100% of the time. But I have this higher understanding that tells me all of this is love. Everything that we find horrible ultimately is a reflection of us. And we can heal that by healing ourselves. And then we no longer see these things. And it sounds, as I'm saying the words, it sounds like, oh yeah, okay. Like, oh sure, we
Like
could just do that.
Pollyanna, but
Yeah.
not.
But but this realm that we're in is one that is, in my experience, we're on a spiral toward ascension. We're spiraling upward. We're not spiraling downward. What is projected on a television screen, on a movie screen, on your computer screen, on your phone screen, that is not always reality. A lot of it is fabricated. A lot of it is to fool you. We live in a dual world. In my world, love is dominant. In other individuals' worlds, love is not dominant. So the best that for me, the best advice I have to give to people is intend love. That's all. That's all. Just in your words, thoughts, actions, state of being, intend love. And, something the forces that were in my NDE, I've come to understand what they were. So there was the love energy, the love force, and there was also the force of it's a force, non-resistance, law of attraction. It has a name. It's been talked about for now centuries. And that was the other dominant energy in my NDE, dark energy. And it's linked to potential link to consciousness, our like fundamental consciousness. Dark energy and consciousness is there's a connection somehow, but there's other parts to it, other pieces to it that are very important that we don't understand. But those were the two main energies because the law of
What was the
attraction.
fourth one? So we have a love energy, a force of non-resistance, which is law of attraction, dark
Mhm.
energy. What's the fourth energy?
Oh, dark matter.
Dark
Dark
matter.
matter.
What's
Yeah.
the difference between dark matter and dark energy?
Well, I'm no physicist, but I feel like the difference is in the vibration and almost like what its intention is. Um,
Mm.
that it's a consciousness in and of itself, each one commingling with human consciousness. So, and other consciousnesses probably, like I have no idea, um, but I feel like we're like scratching the surface of it as, us humble human beings and trying to understand it. And even as an NDEer, and having had that experience, I am no closer really to understanding that than anyone else on this earth. So I am still I am still trying to understand it in the sense where then it can sit within me and I can say, oh yeah, okay, that's it. I'm not there yet.
So many puzzle pieces. We're all just trying to pick up the ones that make sense and resonate and put together our own picture so that we can understand things.
And that's where I created the 12 principles because I was like, I want to be there, but I'm in all this chaos stuff and my work life, my home life was chaos. Well, it needed to be healed, all of it, but I had to heal me. So that's where I created the 12 principles for daily living and wrote my book. And um, people can find it on Amazon if they want.
Yeah, that was actually my next question. I'm sure that people are so excited to connect with you, Krista. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit more about specifically what the name of your book is and where they can connect with you, your
Okay.
website, all that.
Yeah. Oh, well, I don't have a website, but I do have an email that people can feel free.
Okay, what is
Um,
it?
it's 12principles@gmail.com. And my book is called I Died and Learned How to Live. Now, the title, yes, I died and learned how to live. Clinically, I was dead, but we all know that the soul moves on and never dies. So, yeah, and it can be found on Amazon.
Excellent. Oh, wow. So I love this conversation. I love connecting. And I'm
Thank you.
curious for those of you who are watching, like what part of Krista's NDE resonated the most with you? Was it her uncovering that she had the power to change her experience? Was it what she learned about self-love? Was it the part about maybe having the evidential evidence that this is real? I'd love to hear from you. And you've got this far and you just want to write collective, waking up the collective, that always helps all of these videos as well. But Krista, I have one final question, and I think I know what your answer is going to be that I ask everybody, which is, what do you know for sure?
That we don't die.
Mm,
We never die. Yeah.
beautiful. Well, Krista, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for coming back and for being willing to share your beautiful experience. And thank you for what you are doing personally to Wake Up the Collective. It is so needed right now.
Oh, thank you so much. This is great. Loved
It
it.
was great. Me too. I loved it. And of course, this show is absolutely nothing without all of you who tune in to watch, to listen, and to share these beautiful experiences with somebody who needs it. And if you still have questions, you can join me for Wake Up Wednesdays live at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Eastern. Thank you, everybody, for watching. There's a reason you found this video. These stories awaken something ancient inside us. Hit subscribe and stay on the path with us.